let's kind of just jump right into this today, guys. It is Monday. It is a brand new week of trading. First things first, shout out to the stream sponsors, guys. As always, we will always give them a shout out. Breakout Prop and CoinCatch. CoinCatch is a derivatives exchange that we use the most. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Breakout Prop, as you guys know, the best crypto prop firm out there. If you guys have any questions or need any answers or want to get involved but just don't know how, please reach out to me. We'll get you connected to who you need to get connected to, right? Get on over to Breakout Prop and see if you can pass an evaluation and get an account funded. Just getting into NPOC levels, again, not much has changed. We still have prints lower, we still have prints higher, but what I like to do is focus on the local prints, right? And this is what I mean by local prints. It's prints within probably, 5 to 6% range on BTC. Focus on the local prints first, and then you can kind of dive in and out depending on how price action continues to go. So we'll just kind of create game plans and go forward from here. We did break out of this channel here, which is great. Going to kind of update this and kind of just get rid of it. It was a great channel trend that we saw a breakout from. Again, strength, right? But also it's another area of resistance that could potentially retest, right? So we broke out, maybe potentially come back down, retest this area, and then it can have a move higher, right? So again, just using previous setups for future setups down the road. The long still the same, 91285. This is the one that I sent you guys, a couple days ago? Right after that impulse move up, there was that print on the daily close. And so again, things stay the same for me. Just because we go a little bit higher doesn't mean that this play gets invalidated. This is still where I want to long next on BTC, right? Retest 91285 is where I'll be looking to add some more on BTC. And again, same thing, we still have NPOC prints lower as well. So those game plans still stay the same. If we go and we retest those levels, let's just say this is a bearish retest and we retest lower at 82,109. Well, I'll still be looking to long that area, right? Just because we didn't break out of this 94 to 95K resistance immediately doesn't mean that we can't eventually, right? Because it is a resistance level, very key resistance level that we're kind of rejecting off of, right? And so maybe a retest before we can get that move up. Again, that's the wishful thinking for people that are sidelined, right? If you have exposure and you're long from lows and you're still holding to kind of maximize that ROI, and this kind of price action doesn't really mean too much just because you have such a good entry that maybe you don't want to ruin your average by adding at 91,285, or maybe you're already over position size and you don't want to add anymore, whatever it may be. There's a lot of factors going into why you do or don't add to some of your positions. These are the next areas I'm looking to long BTC next. I don't think we have a short setup. We technically are in a short one from here based off that 95756 NPOC retest. So again, guys, depending on your bias, right? This is a decent area to be putting on a potential hedge, right? And it doesn't mean that price has to drop significantly right away, right? This can take time to unfold, right? So we're in a short, but maybe price does something like this before we actually get a move to the downside and then up, right? So this is the way that I think. This is kind of like my thought process with it is, you're not going to really catch the exact top for a short or the exact bottom for a long. And so this is kind of like that same strategy, but to the short side. Look to kind of dollar cost average within this area. 95,796, 98,407. If you can get an average to the short side within that area, that is a resistance area. So that's a potential setup or a potential trade for you guys to continue to look for. Now, again, I don't know your bias, right? I am still on the long heavy side, and I've been on the long heavy side for a while. It's no surprise as to why. I think that the downside normally is always temporary. If you are very interested in sticking within crypto, I think that the majority of us would like to be net long, right? But there is areas of interest for hedges, and this is kind of one of those areas of interest, right? So for me, I'm still hedged from 105K. You guys know kind of the thought process of that, right? That hedge is there not to take profits, it's just to protect, right? So ideally when you hedge, for me, you don't really take the profit because you're losing profit to the downside on your long. So it's just kind of there to protect against unrealized gains. Ideally, the hedge round trips completely and your longs continue higher. So short entry, and then we have our longs. Again, not gonna go over this too much just because it's pretty straightforward from, how we're looking to trade it, where we're looking to long, where we're looking to short next is very, very straightforward. Bitcoin top indicator, guys, not seeing much of a top yet. I will keep you guys updated on this chart every single time we do a stream so that we can kind of just talk about it, right? I think it's very key. When things start to really ramp up, I'll start telling you guys, honestly, like if there's positions that I'm taking off on spot that are up 300, 400%, like I will tell you guys, or, maybe I think that the market is going to shift to the downside a little bit. And this is going to be a very, very key anchor for us going forward. But again, these are all high-term time frame indicators, right? You can't really trade based off this. You can just kind of get a feel like an anchor chart, right? Like this was our anchor chart previously. And this is going to be our anchor chart kind of going forward, because we're really kind of in those times of all-time highs where you don't know where the top is going to be. So you're not going to ever find the exact top, but it'll at least help you know when to lock in some profits, right? When to stop being overexposed, because look, I tell you right now, 93,000 for BTC is high priced, but when price goes higher and it's at like 200,000, 180,000, this is going to look like such a steal buy, right? So again, get in the mindset of thinking, where are the good areas to be bidding for longer term? Here, probably not the best area to be, getting into a new trade. But if you're an investor, if you're a long-term holder, it doesn't really matter where you're buying Bitcoin, because you kind of believe in the whole theory of what it's doing. Ethereum's a good one, man. I really think that once we can kind of break certain levels, that Ethereum can really, really break out here. But again, getting into our normal setups, getting into everything that, we're talking about here. So this is still the next area of interest to long for me on Ethereum, 1580. That is the NPOC print from really the lows. And so that's where I'm interested in longing next. Again, not really kind of forcing any of this. And then the next area of interest to short, I think, was currently at that 1753. So again, maybe a potential good short, but hard to get a read on Ethereum right now. It's just in a weird spot. So shorting, if you're not really willing to short here, which I don't know. I just think shorting Ethereum down at 1700 is just kind of crazy. But if you got targets 1100, 1200, and you really think that they're going to hit, then, maybe not a bad retest to kind of short into at this 2000 level. We have our long, we have our short, and now it's just kind of waiting to see what happens within price action. So equity gaps, something we could talk about. Pulling this from Shark. Shark was the one that kind of talks about this a lot, our equity gaps, and again, what does this kind of just look like? A great range for equities to be trading, right? So maybe something like that. Fill the lower gap. That's when BTC goes down, fills some of those lower NPOC levels. We get a bounce back up, filling gaps to the upside. So again, I am still in the mindset, guys, that price isn't going to go up and in the direction we want right away. I think that obviously going to over time, but it's just going to be a sideways couple of months. That's the narrative we've talked about for a while. BONK had a really good move as well. Did not long this, wasn't trading this, but they did open up like a pump fund, which I just thought was really interesting. We'll touch on it real quick. BONK basically opened up their own pump fund, but the fees are used to burn BONK, right? So instead of people lining their own pockets like fucking Pump Fund did and all that stuff, they're doing like buybacks, right? So I don't know exactly the logistics of how it's working, but it's just something interesting to keep eyes on, keep tabs on. BONK being one of those ones that really ran last cycle, maybe it runs pretty hard this cycle as well. This is going according to plan. We created this a while ago back here on like March 15th, moved to the downside, and maybe it potentially gets moved to the upside. I don't know. This is a Dino coin. Someone was talking and they were saying like Dino coins were going to absolutely shred this cycle. And that's kind of why I'm interested. I don't know why, I just think the setups, the long-term setups on some of these are actually pretty good. Like 88 has a decent setup here from this impulse move at around 30 cents, just literally impulsed $1 up, right? So again, performed pretty well in 2024, was kind of one of those outliers that did okay. Dino coin, been around for fucking ever, has a lot of support. Yeah, not bad. I don't know. I'm not on board with getting into an ADA position just quite yet. Yeah, just a good performer in 2024, right? 2025, obviously questionable with everything was, but yeah, a decent one to keep watch on. We'll dive into the 4 hour here and just kind of see if we can manage to find something. Yeah, the 4 hour actually looks pretty decent for just like a lows, right? Like you can argue that this is lower limit of this range, highs, lows. You can pull it down a little bit if you want, but obviously you want to have lower limit, hit a touch a little bit. We're still kind of sitting at this lower limit area on ONDO, right? So not a bad area to still be adding. Are we at the exact bottom at 66 cents? No, we're at 95 cents now, right? But when price starts to move, a 95-cent buy looks pretty good when it's sitting at $1.80, right? So that's kind of what I want you guys to be focused on with this one. We do have the $1 resistance. That's pretty key, right? We spiked above it and then rejected for a while. So we do need to get above $1. $1 is like that huge psychological barrier, the one, right? When I was trading penny stocks, that was like the hardest fucking resistance to break, was that $1. And so it still is very true. $1 whole numbers, $5, $10. Like I just feel like those levels take longer to break above. So right here, break above $1, I could see 140, 180, and then back to those $2.17. So ONDO is actually in a decent area for either very low leverage buys or maybe some spot buys, right? I think just that we're kind of trading back into this old previous current range that we were watching for a while, at the midsummer-ish of last year. We're kind of still in that area. So I think, this isn't a bad time to be, dollar cost averaging into Doge. If you can get an average between 15 and 10, somewhere in there, I think that it will bode well. Doge, again, Dogecoin, Elon Musk, fucking Department of Government Efficiency. It's gonna be around forever. Will this make you a millionaire? I don't know, but at the same time, this is a Dino coin. If the Dino coin narrative gets hot again, this one will run. Elon's back this one. There's just a lot that goes on with Dogecoin that just almost makes it like a pretty sound investment for the long term, right? That being said, you don't want to be aping the fucking top with your entire portfolio, and still same rules apply. But it's had a great base build, move up. Base build, move up, maybe base build, and then we can finally move back up to that 50 cents, 70 cents area. Right now, we're just in an area where I think things are gonna retest, and so I do wanna have patience to kind of get some of those lower levels, right? So that just means that I don't wanna force anything up here. So for this one, we're gonna go low term time frame. You kind of have to off this impulse. So it depends on how you wanna trade it, right? Because this is a 30-minute chart, and you could argue that this would be the range, which I think is pretty clear. They have a median ML, right, where some price action kind of happened about that $3 area. I think a retest of 3 would be a really good buy on SUI. I don't know if we're going to get it, but you could probably, depending on the way that you want to trade, depending on how you have your portfolio diversified, you kind of look to potentially start adding at some of these levels. I don't know. Honestly, I probably wouldn't long until probably the lows of that 2. If it's just me, honestly. And it's not because I don't believe in SUI. I have a lot of SUI, but as far as a trade, as far as entries go based off of a trade, this impulse move up was just pretty fucking strong to where I just don't think we get retests on SUI. And if you do, it'd probably be $3-ish, and then, maybe something like that. So I would, look to find an average within that area on SUI. I don't think I would overcomplicate it too much. $3 bids on SUI aren't terrible, but you guys do have to understand my perspective with SUI. My bids were all the way back here from this setup too. So 38-cent bids on SUI. $3 bids are hard to think are good when I'm holding a shit ton from 38 cents, right? So it's all perspective. I think SUI had a great move out, and this is starting to continue to prove that it's going to be one of the better movers come this next cycle. And once we break highs, if we get back to those highs of $5, there's a lot of potential on a play like this if we can get back above all-time highs, especially if markets are hot in a pretty bullish trend. So again, I'm long SOL from lower, but I really doubt that people get a shot at below $100 SOL again. I would be very surprised because this looks so manipulated to go below 100. I'm still under the impression 180 is going to hit on SOL, right? At least for my trade, that's going to be where a lot of my take profit is. But yeah, going forward, if we retest 120, I've said that 120 price action on SOL is very, very key, right? It wasn't the bottom, but it's still it's a very, very key pivot point that you need to be focused on, from previous times. So again, if we retest 120, that would be again an area that I would look to be adding to SOL, or at least adding to my position down there, 120-ish on SOL, because I still think SOL can get to 180. Thank you so much, guys. Happy Monday. Get on over and follow me on YouTube, guys. I'm really trying to build that YouTube following. I've been actually getting some good engagement on the shorts, getting some good views. So really gonna just continue to pump out content for you guys each and every week, and I will see you guys over on the Telegram. Peace out.